So, very important concept which needs a deeper understanding in Ayurveda is the concept of Prakriti. And we know that Prakriti is formed at the time of conception. And we normally think that Prakriti means dosha Prakriti. But that is a very incomplete understanding of this concept of Prakriti in Ayurveda. So let's give some thought on what the concept of Prakriti actually would mean. We translate Prakriti often as constitution, or we translate Prakriti as body type, somatotype. But if you look at the Sanskrit meaning of the word Prakriti, it means Prakriti, it means the first creation, to which we can even interpret as the basal state of the body. I mean, that basic state of stability to which the body will keep coming back after adapting to external changes and situations. So Prakriti is the basal state of our physiology, metabolism, and our structural integrity, and it is unique to each individual. So there are some difficulties when we look at Prakriti as just a typing of personality, because we have certain sets of people into whom we categorize. So Prakriti should not actually be understood just as a box or bins into which you can put different people. Prakriti is actually a framework through which we understand how each individual is different from another. So Prakriti actually looks at both similarity and dissimilarity between individuals, and we go to the point where we know what makes one individual unique. As we discussed a little earlier, we are all made up of the same ingredients. It's only in the configuration that we change. So that is why we are similar and dissimilar at the same time. So in Ayurveda, Prakriti, you can see in this chart, we have put up the multiple elements of Prakriti, that is Jati Prasakta, Kula Prasakta, Deshanupatini, Kalanupatini, Vayonupatini, and then Pratyatmaniyata. So actually, Dosha Prakriti and the Sattva Prakriti, or the Manasika Prakriti, comes under the category of Pratyatmaniyata Prakriti, that which actually gives us our unique individual imprint. Ethnicity, family, place, time, and age, these are also factors that create an impact on our personality, but these are features that we share with people around us. That this is not that which makes us really unique, but makes us identify ourselves with a community or our own family or a particular place in which we live. So ethnicity is Jati Prasakta Prakriti, people who are inbreeding, who live as a community and who breed within themselves. And there are certain common characteristics that they will share. This also needs to be taken into account when we assess the Prakriti of a person. So this is best understood as the ethnic identity or the ethnic fingerprint of an individual. And then we have Kula Prasakti, people belonging to a certain family, and here of course crossbreeding is the rule. People marry from across families, and there is a specific type of genetic exchange that happens in this process. So we inherit many traits based on the families into which we are born. I mean, we inherit the genes from our families, and that also creates certain unique characteristics that make up our personality. So this is again the Prakriti that enables us to understand how we are similar to other people around us. And then we have Deshanupatini, or place. If you are born and brought up and grow in a particular place, that also has a particular influence on your system. And you share some common characteristics. People living in a particular geographical region will have certain common characteristics. This is called as the Deshanupatini Prakriti. And then we have the Kalanupadini Prakriti, which is the influence of time, of the seasons. And this also affects a whole population which is exposed to that climatic change. And this is called as Kalanupatini. And then Vayonupatini is the impact of age on your constitution. When we become old, irrespective of which part of the world we are in and what is our ethnicity, there are some common characteristics that we exhibit just because of our age. And this is called as Vayonupatini Prakriti. So this is the background framework into which we impose the concept of dosha and sattva prakriti. What is missing today is that this exclusive focus on dosha prakriti has made us to downplay the importance of other elements that make up your constitution. So as a person, the Purusha is a combination of the influences of all these prakritis. And this is very beautifully, put together in Ayurveda, and in this slide we can see that how Ayurveda has anticipated the combined influence of genetics, epigenetics, and individual characteristics. It is all these three things coming together that shape up our personality. So Jati Prakriti and Kula Prakriti relate to the genetics, Desha Anupatini and Kalanupatini Prakriti as well as Vayonupatini relate to epigenetics, and then at an individual level, what the basal state of that particular individual, the way he is configured, that makes up the individual component of one's personality. So Ayurveda in the context of Garbha Sharira has understood this complex interplay of multiple factors that lead to the development of a unique individual and personality. And the main concept in Ayurveda is that intervene as early as possible. If you want to create an individual that is refined and expresses a higher consciousness, then we have to start early. Modern research has come up with very, very interesting findings that are now, reaffirming many of the insights that humanity had in olden days. So there is now an evidence that sensory developments are happening in the fetus at a very early stage in the uterine life. So mother's external sensory environment is extremely crucial. It is going to influence the development of the baby's postnatal phase. That is, how the baby is going to develop after childbirth is to a great extent determined by what the baby is exposed, what is there in the external environment of the mother during pregnancy. So, touch, sight, smell, sound, taste, all these sensations are perceived by the fetus. So it is this Ayurvedic idea that a mother has two hearts is actually beginning to gain credibility. So the mother, it's not only whatever the mother experiences, we must know that it is also being shared by another living being inside the womb. And so it's so important for the mother to be careful about what she is exposed to, because it not only affects her but also the growing child in the womb. It is quite dark inside the womb. We can just imagine visualizing ourselves inside the womb of our own mother. There will not be much light inside. But interestingly, modern research has revealed that human skin does allow light to pass through, and some illumination is available for the fetus. So there are some scientists like Reed and his colleagues studied the reaction of third trimester fetuses to patterns of red dots shown into the womb. The baby's reaction to different light patterns were monitored by using high definition ultrasound. And researchers found that fetuses were twice likely to track the movement of dot patterns that resemble the human face. The same pattern and preference that has been demonstrated in babies after birth. So it's quite clear that if we show some light into the womb of a pregnant woman, the child is able to pick up these patterns and even identify. So this is so profound. I mean, this really justifies why Ayurveda gave so much of importance to Garbhini Charya and gave so much of caution against what the expectant mother should be exposed to. So this is a proof that the preference of a newborn child to human faces is innate. It's not something that is acquired by experience after birth. Even before the baby has seen a human face, it has a preference to respond to patterns that resemble a human face. So these kind of studies have shown how profoundly we can influence a growing fetus much before it is born and is in contact with the external world. And this is what Ayurveda has very greatly emphasized. Now, it's now quite well known. In 1980s, it was recognized that babies can hear even when they are inside the womb. They can not only hear, they can distinguish different voice patterns even while they are inside the uterus. So, babies have an inclination towards their mother's voice. Immediately after birth, they are able to recognize and respond to their mother's voice. So they even did an experiment in which they put a non-nutritive nipple to a tape recorder and they played the voice of the mother. So whenever the baby sucks the nipple, the mother's voice would play, and then the baby would suck the nipple even more vigorously. So it clearly shows that the baby has recognized the voice of the mother even while it was inside the womb. They compared it with the voice of a stranger, somebody the baby would never have been exposed to before, and it was quite clear that the baby preferred the mother's voice over the voice of the stranger. It's even more intriguing to understand that taste and smell sensations can also be sensed while the baby is inside the uterus. So, researchers did an experiment by giving pregnant women both garlic and sugar capsules, and then they took a sample of the amniotic fluid. The samples were smelled by blindfolded panel members who could not actually determine which samples came from women who ate garlic, and they were easily able to smell garlic in the amniotic fluid of women who had consumed garlic. So this showed that it is possible that the amniotic fluid can transmit the smell of substances that the mother eats. So this is so important now that the baby will be influenced. So the baby is continuously exposed to all the sensory influences of the mother. So to further test this theory, one group of pregnant women was instructed to drink carrot juice every day during pregnancy, and other was told to avoid it completely. And once the child began eating solid food, researchers fed them cereal made with either water or carrot juice, and they found babies exposed to carrot in amniotic fluid ate more of the carrot flavored cereal. So which means the babies had already tasted carrot while they were in the womb. And so when they came out, they could easily recognize this is carrot. So this is so important. That is why Ayurveda says, all the bad tendencies, negative inclinations of the mind, once the child becomes grown and it becomes fixed, it is very difficult to refine them. To create a new generation of individuals that are very spiritually rooted, very empathetic, and have a greater quality of consciousness, it is very important that we influence the life while it is in the womb itself. Touch sensation. Around 8 weeks, the baby is able to feel the touch. So on the face, mostly on the lips and nose. Over the next several months, touch receptors begin to develop on other parts of the body, palms and soles by 12 weeks and abdomen by 17 weeks. Brain scans have revealed that infants do not sense pain until after 30 weeks. That's only when the somatosensory neural pathways are developed. By the mid-third trimester, however, the baby is able to appreciate a full range of sensations, including heat, cold, pressure, and pain in every part of the body. So, this shows that the baby is already interacting with the external environment even while it is inside the womb of the mother. And this is why in Ayurveda we say that we have to create life consciously. I was discussing with a pediatrician about how the baby is influenced in life and how the sense organs are so developed that the baby is influenced even while in the womb. And this pediatrician recounted a very interesting experience that he had in his clinic. So he said that he once encountered a baby who would refuse to breastfeed from the mother. So he looked at examined the mother, the baby, the breast milk was all fine, everything was good. She is producing enough breast milk. The baby has no problem, but he just couldn't figure out why the baby wouldn't be feeding. So it so happened just by coincidence that that woman's sister was also pregnant, had delivered at that time, and she was also breastfeeding. So the doctor decided to do an experiment. The doctors told this woman to feed your baby, try with your sister. So this woman tried to make the baby feed with her own sister, and then they found that the baby very happily started breastfeeding. So this was very intriguing. The doctor said that we did not have any medical explanation as to why the baby did not prefer to feed from her own mother, while the mother's sister, the baby was very comfortable in breastfeeding. And then this pediatrician told me that, on further conversation with that mother, they realized that this pregnancy was actually unwanted. The mother did not want that pregnancy. So for after conception, for the first many weeks, the mother was strongly thinking of, aborting the child. And even to a great extent during pregnancy, she was again and again thinking negatively about the child. This is a pregnancy that I do not want. Why did this child happen? And it appears that the thoughts of the mother has actually influenced the baby. The baby had developed an aversion. The baby, clearly demonstrated this inclination of not wanting to feed from a mother who didn't want that child alive in the first place. So these kind of findings are becoming more and more, widespread. People are beginning to understand the deeper aspects of human psychology and why and how it's so important that, the intrauterine life of the fetus should be given that much attention. The father can also contact with the child even before it is born. There are studies which have shown that by calling out to the child in the womb, the child will be beginning to recognize the father's voice and have a deep connection. So this bonding can be developed even before the child is born. And this creates a completely different personality when the child is born. So this idea of a conscious creation of life, that is going to be the greatest contribution of the Garbha Sharira of Ayurveda. Today we are all interested only in physical things. Will the child be born without any disease? All that is important, and modern medicine has made a lot of developments there. As I was mentioning in the beginning, we can even cut open the uterus, the womb, and then remove a tumor and then save the baby. This is amazing and we need it. Definitely yes. We can also, if necessary, grow a child in an artificial womb. But we don't understand that this does not mean that now we must grow children in wombs outside our own body. it's not necessary. Just because there is an artificial womb, it doesn't mean that the child should always be nurtured in an artificial environment. We have the technology, we can use it when it becomes inevitable, but the whole focus has to be on how we can create this bonding and nurture the baby in a way that it will develop a deep psychological evolution, even as it is growing in the womb of the mother. And this is the concept in our tradition, because there is a Vedic mantra which says Satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyayan ma pramada acharyasya priyam dhanam ahritya prajatantum ma vyavachhetsi. Satyanna pramadidavyam dharmanna pramadidavyam kushalanna pramadidavyam bhutyaina pramadidavyam swadhyaya pravajanabhyam na pramadidavyam. So here, this mantra so beautifully encapsulates the idea of transmission of samskara. This mantra says what you should do as an individual to develop samskara, and how that samskara is what should be transmitted to the child. Satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyayanna pramadidavim. This means that you are established in a dharmic way of life, that your personality has been refined, and you become a more evolved person. And that samskara, prajatantum ma vyavachhetsi, don't break the lineage. Transmit this samskara to the new generation. And this transmission of samskara is the key aspect of Garbha Sharira in Ayurveda. So, the word Ayurveda, we usually say that it is the science of life. But I would also like to point out, if you really look at the Sanskrit meaning of the word Ayus, it also means a science of death. Because the word Ayus actually means that which goes. Means that life will come to an end. That is what the word Ayurveda means. So the word Ayus means both life and death. It shows that life and death are just like the two sides of the same coin. We all think that we are eternal and living forever. Even when we see people dying around us, it never strikes us that one day this will also be our fate. So life definitely comes to an end. But there is a tremendous urge in nature for continuity of life. In fact, we are actually dying every day and being reborn. Every time we eat food, the nutrition is recreating us. So life exists because it is being reborn. It is the rebirth that makes life continue. People ask, is there really rebirth? If you really look at your own physiology, how your cells are recreating itself, you don't have to go beyond this life to understand what is rebirth, because we are being remade, reborn again and again. In fact, it is when the body loses the ability to recreate itself, that is when old age happens and death comes in. So death is the failure of the body to recreate itself. The life exists by conquering death moment by moment. The moment we are created, we are destroyed, but we recreate ourselves again and again. And biological reproduction is one of the ways in which life continues itself. So there is the self-renewal at the physical level, and then there is the renewal of the whole individual by creating a new life, through the process of reproduction. So in Ayurveda, it's very interesting that we have this concept of Rasayana and Vajikarana. And Rasayana always comes before Vajikarana. So which means that, this is another interesting aspect of Garbha Shariram, that through Rasayana we create the Shasta Dhatus or the Prashasta Dhatus. So we talk that at the mental level, it is the transmission of samskara that is important. If samskara has to be transmitted at the mental level, then at the physical level, the best quality of the dhatus has to be transmitted from one generation to the other. And that is why before Vajikarana, we always do Rasayana. So the Prashasta Dhatus, that is transmitted through the reproductive element into the new life. So Ayurveda talks about refinement, the new creation of a new birth as an opportunity to refine the individual both at the physical and the mental levels of existence. So with this we try to give an overview of Garbha Sharira and its importance and what makes it unique from an Ayurvedic perspective. And in the backdrop we also try to explain the need for a more comprehensive understanding of the Ayurvedic concept of Sharira and its division into various branches. And I hope that this will stimulate more thinking in this direction, and that we will be able to reintegrate Sharira Kriya, Sharira Rajana into this larger and more comprehensive approach of Sharira Sthanam. Thank you.